Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have the top 16 deck list for the PPG October Dragon Ball Super Regional that happened this past weekend. There were 128 players with 7 rounds, and we've got this top 16 cut for you. So shoutouts to PPG for putting out these lists so I can share them with you guys and just give my thoughts, as well as congrats to Alejandro Tovar for their first place finish in this event as well. I did do an interview with them and I posted it earlier on my channel today as well, so be sure to check that out. But going through this top 16, we do have the 3 Red Sin, 3 Gogeta GT, 2 Gotenks, Green Gotenks, 2 Gamma, 1 Aandroidd 13, 1 AOD Bobby, 1 Kidku Reboot, 1 SS4 Vegeta, 1 Yellow Bardock, and 1 Green King Piccolo. And again, I do want to mention that this is a BT18 tournament, so there was no anniversary box, as well as the newly announced ban list was not in effect either. So it was strictly a BT18 list. So it's more of, it's not exactly the meta we're going into for the next couple of weeks either. This is pretty much the last BT18 event, again, without the new ban list and the anniversary box. So take that with you as you will. Going through this video, I will be kind of going over my thoughts on the archetypes in general moving forward, not just necessarily right here, and just my expectations for them in the anniversary box, and then kind of BT19 meta as well as with the ban list. So anyways, we're going to go through the top placing list for each leader, starting with Alejandro Tovar's Red Sin. Starting with Alejandro Tovar's first place Sin Shenron list, I did do an interview with him, so I do recommend watching that video if you want more in depth about this. But real quick, I think Sin Shenron, in my mind, I don't think it's necessarily going anywhere with the ban list. Obviously, it's getting a lot of cards hit from it in this version of the build, meaning the Broly is getting eroded, the Violent Rays is, the Vegeta is essentially not used in this deck anymore based on the errata. Yamcha you have to put to 1, and then King Piccolo is also out of the list as well. So, but the deck is still good. Like, these are just kind of like option cards for the list. The main engine for it is still very, very strong, and I don't think it's like it, and it just gets a lot of value, and it's still the best deck in the game to abuse this Rush Attack SSB Vegeta, which again I still think is the best Z battle card in the game without looking at all of the BT19 stuff. We're going to see how that is, but this is, I don't know why it's a 3-star. It's a 5-star card. Like this deck can just abuse it so much and it gets so much value on it. So again, just congrats to Alejandro there. And we're going to go to the next one, which is Justin's second place Gotenks. And I'm really happy to see that Gotenks got a top 16 finish in this meta. I thought it was honestly really good for what it was. And I'm very surprised I didn't see more of this until now, pretty much the end of the format for BT18. So you just got a lot of new tools, including this this Gotenks here. So good, just being able to Union Fusion for free, which turns on a lot of effects for this. And also, if your leader is green and has Gotenks' character name, and you place this card in his drop pair, add to 1 Sun Goten and Trunks, both from your drop to your hand, then choose between one of your opponent's battle cards with any cost 2 or less and KO it. But just being able to do some Union Fusion stuff means there's some nice stuff, including you can activate this to find some unison stuff, and then the new and old unisons for this list. It looks like he's just using the new one too, which is really interesting. The SS3 Gogeta Carefree Combatant. So in Power 5, also once per turn we activate a union skill, which we will with that for free essentially. You get to add a marker to it, and then +1, place 1 card from your hand to the bottom of your deck, then reveal 1 with Union Fusion. Add to 1 battle card from your deck and or drop with each character name that matches the union between 3 and 7. Or your opponent just discards cards from the -2. So really interesting tech there, and something else like this Gotenks, Goten and Trunks is such a good effect, especially in the activate battle. So if your leader is a green card, Gotenks' character name, and one of your green cards with Gotenks in battle, use this card in combo from your drop at the end of the battle as this card from your drop to your warp. But if you put this into your Z energy, and then you can pay the cost for something, you put it into your drop again and you can use it again. It is a hard limit one, but it is a nice kind of recursion for building Z energy and like a free combo every turn, which is kind of nice. Then just running 1 of the new promo Gokus, as well as 2 of each of the faded rivals as well. I don't know, green does have some nice tools. It just wasn't keeping pace with red all the time. And in looking at the Z deck, there's just 2 cards of each of the Frieza and as well as the Z leader as well. This is very strong, but I think, I don't know, obviously you can bump these ratios more. You can go up to 7 of it, but it just seems to me like you're not really prioritizing Z energy as much with this deck, and that's kind of understandable because you got a bunch of these union plays too. And only going into the Reaper of Justice, as I'm just kind of noticing here, as your only Union Fusion besides the Gotenks here is a really interesting call as well. But anyways, that is the list. Congrats again to Justin on their finish there. And next up, we have the third place Aandroidd 13. It's Jared Lopez running this event deck. What crazy? Who would have thought Jared's still running Aandroidd 13 nearly a year later, still running the same leader from his Nationals and World Championship run of this last year. I don't have a lot to say about this one that I haven't said literally a dozen times already this year, because Jared is such a grinder with this. But big shout outs to him on the finish here, getting third place, and only loss was Alejandro in the finals as well, which means that AZ reps are doing really well for this tournament, and that's really cool to see. So congrats to Jared there. I don't have a lot to say. Again, it's pretty standard. I think you get some new tools in the next set with it as well. The newest card I see is the Super Saiyan Kaba Proud Zenith and a 1 of. That's like the thing that catches my eye. Everything else looks pretty standard for this. We do lose the Sensu Bean in at least it does get eroded in this next format. But as far as I know, Jared mostly uses Bean on defense. I think there are some cards that do have like dual attack, such as the Aandroidd 1718 that you would want on defense as well, or on offense as well. But I don't think it's as crucial as maybe some other decks that needed it kind of on that offense step as well. But that is Jared's list. Congrats again for probably like your 12th regional qualifier finish there. And next up, we do have Thomas's fourth place Agent of Destruction's list. And I do love Agents of Destruction very much, especially like, and we're getting this new villainous kind of archetype for real this time, not like the 3 years ago when they tried it and then it didn't really work out. Just being able to have kind of like a multicolor leader with ignoring energy exhaust with magenta in the next set. This has already been done with Agent Destructions, and it still has some cool staying power in a lot of ways. Some techs in this one include, Support of the Dark Empire is a newer tech for it just because this is Black Leader. Running the SS4 Vermilion Saiyans, just because you're going to have a bunch of color in your energy area, gets a lot of pops for it, but also just the Z deck as well that this deck gets to use. And since it has a lot of color flexibility with what it does, you're able to use a lot of different Z battle cards, including SSB Vegeta. You're able to use the SS4 Goku as well, Cell, Oolong, SSB Vegeta, this Take a Life if you need it. Not that I don't think this deck needs it as much, but I could be wrong there. Just some really strong power with all of that, and that's kind of cool to see with it. And they're also even just running Super Namekian as well, where you can play one slug with any cost of 1 from our deck. I don't think this can get anything, but you can just hard play this and then you just swing with it and it kind of just stays there. So that's probably something with it, but it's an interesting choice in this list. I don't know. I think this is good. Again, if there's some good Z battle cards that this can also abuse in this next set, I think that could be helpful for it as well. But I don't know. I've always had a special place in my heart for the Age of Destructions, and it's just a really cool archetype, and we don't get many kind of archetypes that are like generic to the card game, and I think this is one of those, and that's just kind of cool. So that is the fourth place. Again, congrats to Thomas there. Next up, we have the fifth place Gogeta run by Alejandro Torres. And this is probably, again, one of the big bully decks in the format. We're seeing all the red cards that got hit are in this list, right? So Broly errata, Violent Rays errata. This can't be played in this leader anymore. And then Yamcha 1 and Piccolo banned as well. But nothing, I'd say, other than that, just too out of the ordinary. It's just you have to choose different tech cards or use tech cards that are a little bit minus for you. But man, this is still just a strong list, just because the core of the deck is so strong, and it's really interesting just to see them take off like the power of a bunch of these kind of core red staples that we've had for a while, just getting rid of literally 5 of them or worsening them, and in the case of the Broly and the Violent Rays. And we're going to see if that does make a difference or an impact for a deck like this that generates just so much value all by itself without kind of opponent's interaction. But I don't have much more to say about this. We kind of know how this deck works, and all of you pretty much have your opinions as it is. And nothing I'd say too terribly spicy. But congratulations to Alejandro for that 5th place finish there. And then next up we have Richard Waldron's 8th place Gamma list here. And we are getting some new Gamma stuff in general from BT19, so there could be some hope for a deck like this. I haven't been able to dive into it as much as I've wanted to be honest, so I don't have too much insight specifically for this. But just more Aandroids that you can use is just inherently good for a deck that is restricted to Aandroids in the first place. And I believe some of them are Red Ribbon Army as well, which is important for some of the cards such as the Aandroid 17 Rebellious Will, because if you have this, you have to find an Aandroid. Or like the discard here, yeah, it has to be a blue Red Ribbon Army from the Aandroid 14-15. So just getting more targets for that, I think, is in the good spot. But again, this deck didn't see anything besides Bean, which you weren't running 4 of Bean anyways. So it's not a big, and I would assume most of the time you're using it on the defense, so it's not a huge hit for a deck like this. Yeah, and it's, I don't know, Gamma is just a solid list too. I don't think it's as strong as it was in the BT17 meta. I think it's kind of waning a little bit just with how aggressive the game has been, and this needs a little bit of setup, and there's a little bit of like RNG to get your 3 energy correct to start doing your untap 3 and stuff. But I still think it's a really fun list, and then just deck, and I think people are definitely going to be playing it for Nats, I think, in my mind. Next up, we do have Alejandro Sanchez. That's right, our third Alejandro for this video, playing the Kidku Reboot. And again, one of my favorite leaders, if not my favorite leader for this kind of this era of BT18 with the star deck, just the start of Zenkai. And just a couple of tech cards for this, but it's just a lot of good yellow cards. I think Release from Evil is as good as it's ever been, which is really nice to see. And we do have like the Balma Unison for this list too, I think is like the MVP of why this deck is so good. You get so much advantage from this in so many ways. Getting your plus 5k to your Gokus, being able to have a Unison out pretty much from turn 1 onward, which is really nice. And then also being able to be a blocker if needed, on top of like pretty much all of your Gokus being blockers more or less. It's just so easy for this deck to gain advantage, and as long as your opponent doesn't have too many cards with barrier, there's a lot of kind of removal and just ways to disrupt your opponent, which I think is very strong at the same time too. So I think this deck is good. I'm not super surprised it got a top 16 finish here, and I like this guy a lot, so I'm happy to see it's still performing as well. Next up, we do have, let's see, this is Victor's 12th place SS4 Vegeta. And this, we did not see any SS3 reboots in the top 16 today, which means that, obviously it's the first event, regional size event, at least since the release, that did not get a W from an SS3 reboot. But Vegeta is still in a good spot, and this deck, literally nothing got touched from it, and it still just sometimes does wonders in what it does. You're able to just build a lot of energy. SS4 Vegeta has inherent ramp on the leader side, which is kind of scary if they're able to get it off. And man, I still think this card does not need to exist, or just at least be limited to an SS4 Vegeta leader. Being just a mono blue leader restrict only is a little bit too open-ended for it, but interesting list for this guy in the first place. I like, and also the 4 of internal energy shifts as well. So counterattack, negate the attack. Then your opponent reveals the top card of their deck. If it's a battle card, choose one of your battle cards and one of your energy and switch to active mode. So honestly, like if you do have like a bunch of extra energy to do stuff, which you normally do, and it's more important to be able to reset your SS4 Vegeta for a blocker, or like a Vegeta Ready to Rumble or something like that. That could be helpful. You could also use it to restand the Magenta Fire as well, so that's kind of good too. So internal energy shift, you can use it to negate the attack, and then choose just one of your battle cards and one of your energies, so you can switch this to active mode and one of your energies. So this essentially becomes another copy of Dimension Magic, more or less. Like there is setup for it, and it's a little tricky, but it's true. You do get to do that, so that could be something hopeful if you are worried about being tapped out and needing that. Obviously, there's RNG with this too, because you do need to find a battle card in the top card of your opponent's deck. But it is an interesting tech, and I do like the kind of idea for it. Obviously, I think this can be used for other things. Thing too, because there is a ruling for it. This can only be paid for energy costs, so this can be paid for like the big number in the top left. But for example, if you needed to pay for Dirty Burst, the extra blue for the counterplay, you would not be able to use Magenta Fire for that energy cost, though you could use it for the energy cost just to play the card, and then you use a regular energy for that. So that's just just a minor ruling thing, because I know this card is old and doesn't see a lot of play, but it's an interesting kind of defensive capability if you have the setup with both those guys there. So that is this list. Again, congrats to Victor. I'm sure there's some other kind of cheese I'm missing with this guy, but I'm tired and we've got 2 decks to go. So we are going into Kevin Z's 14th place yellow Bardock. And this is a really interesting build for this list, especially since it's just pure value for this. You try to just awaken early and just kind of go from there. And the Bardock is, I think, this is probably like one of the better leaders for the archetype in the first place, or like just like a Bardock's crew archetype, because they've released a couple throughout the years. Auto once per turn, if it's your turn when you play Bardock's crew, you get to draw 1 card, which means that this could be on both players' turn kind of thing. And then when your life's at 4 or less, or there are 4 or more Bardock's crew with different card names in your energies, the energy battle area, and or drop, you can do the draw 1, untap 1, and then get the same auto over here to draw 1, and then also you get to combo win this. So there's not a lot of inherent draw outright. So there is an issue that if you don't see any Bardock's crew, you don't get any draw, which means you don't get to find your Bardock's crew kind of stuff. But there's also a lot of kind of board swarming and just a lot of just good value plays that you get to do to kind of overwhelm your opponent. So you're also going to notice that the big 8-drop super rare from the set's not in this. And I think that card's super cool, but I think the idea that while it doesn't really have any protection is very hurtful for kind of what it is. So, but this is a really interesting list, also in the sense that there's not really like a big end game win condition. Just kind of reminds me of like some of the decks we saw, like Higher Dragon almost, not outright, but just like the idea, well, I'm just going to get a bunch of value through my plays and eventually outvalue you by the end of the game. But I don't know, it's a cool list, and I'm happy that Kevin got that 14th place finish with it. And our last deck of the day, this is Zachary Kullman's 16th place green King Piccolo, and we did see King Piccolo take a top 16 finish at Pasadena back in September. And I don't know, I'd say like a little bit worse version of like the full powered red King Piccolo, but all that stuff got banned, so you know that you got to tone it down a little bit. But there's I think a solid engine for it. There is some room for interaction with which it makes it harder to consistently do what you want to do. But I do like the idea of this deck kind of be a swarmy deck with all of your Demon Clan cards and going from there. This Piccolo just is a great unison as well. Like, it's another 2-drop Piccolo that just says draw 1, so you can't be too upset about it. And being able to get some stuff, especially since you can destroy stuff on your opponent's side during their turn, it's very good. And then our secret rare for this is the Majin Buu, which can stop this, which is nice because you can get like dual attack on this guy, like on a unison, or even just like the this guy, because you got a big double strike inherently on this, this one's the one you get to play for easy. You just for 2 you get a double strike barrier. As long as you have 3 or more energy, which is quite nice. And then if you swing and you have the energy open for it, you can just say, oh, I'm getting in, and let's kind of go into it. So anyways, that is the list, and congrats to Zachary for their finish there. And this is going to be the video for us today. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Looking forward to the next metas we're getting with the ban list, the anniversary box, and then as well as BT19 on the horizon. So that is going to end the video. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll catch you all next time.
Damn it. Damn it.